me? Only the question.
The first one is, there were 3 challenges mentioned yesterday, which are the slow pace of Islamic product innovation, the lack of Islamic financial expertise, and an inadequate commitment to implementation. So the question is, how can we overcome these 3 challenges in order to support SDGs?
How can we overcome the challenges he mentioned?
Okay.
I think this is enough because we don't have time. You can only address this question, and then Mr. Tariq will answer the second one. Let's start with you.
Yeah, actually, very interesting thing. The Islamic finance, the age is about 40 years, the experiment. And I would say, but the conventional finance industry is about 400 years old. So now the conventional finance industry, or the banking, I'd say specifically, is based on a concept, it's called fractional reserve banking system. And actually there are a lot of Western authors have spoken and written against the system, the fundamental flaw of this thing. Unfortunately, when Islamic finance started the journey, it has committed an original sin. The original sin that it has accepted a model of conventional fractional reserve banking which is not suitable for bringing the micro and macro maqasid of Islamic finance. Speaking about the reason I said this, some theoretical concept, there are the 3 points that you have mentioned. We do have a sort of conflict in the Islamic finance industry. Now, those who run Islamic finance industry right now, they are trained in conventional space. Their thought process, their way of thinking, their entire life has been devoted in order to run a conventional bank. All of a sudden, you bring this person because of his skill set to run an Islamic bank. And he has all the good intention, but his mind is other way. So we need a really new generation of scholars who will be well versed of Sharia, as well as the principles of Islamic banking and finance. And that, until that group comes into play, and it's a transition that you're going through, this product innovation that you are talking about will not be coming forthcoming with a good intention. I very often say that the Islamic finance industry has been hijacked by the conventional banking. The reason is that they have the skill set and they can come up with a product very quickly. If you look at who are the big players in the Islamic finance, it's not really locally grown Islamic banking industry. It's the outside big banking industry. So what needs to be done? The government needs to really put money. I'm talking about the education. Islamic finance education must give enough money in order to promote this sector, develop a curriculum. You will be surprised, there are many universities offering, undergraduate degree, masters and PhD in Islamic finance, but there are only 1, 3, I can count it, how many textbooks you can find written in a Western way. We really need to devote our resources in writing textbook, curriculum development, and in those part of things. I'm sad to say, because I'm a professor, I see not money is going to our direction. In order to write a textbook, you really need your entire energy devoted. It's sort of like ibadah. And if you ask someone in a foundation to give us some money, $200,000 to write a textbook, they are not going to give you that money. But if you want to do a conference, you ask for $200,000 they are going to give. But they do not realize what is the long-term impact of giving $300,000, which does not have immediate impact, but it takes time, but the other one. So this is the way we really have to think, we really need to give money into this area in order to promote it. The reason I'm making this thing, since IDB has given this award, I'm supposed to say this so that we can bring it forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Mr. Tariq, please.
On this issue of coordination between the federal government and the provinces on implementing the...
Yes.
On the issue of coordination between the federal government and the provincial governments on implementation of health-related SDGs, absolutely you're right that the health is a subject to the provincial governments. And that's why I thought what I said earlier I think is important, that you must have a national agenda on it. It's a coincidence that in all the provinces there are different political parties which are in power at the provincial government. But they were all there in the parliament when the SDGs special session was called, and a special decision was taken by the entire parliament, which included all political parties in Pakistan, to implement the SDG agenda. So that brings ownership of the provinces also to implementing of this. The other, I think, what facilitates implementation is the civil service or the bureaucracy. There is a cadre of the bureaucracy which is called the All Pakistan Service. These are the officers from the federal government who work in the provinces also in key assignments. So they can also be the harbingers of this message that the SDGs need to be implemented at the provincial level also. And then, of course, there are coordination mechanisms also. We have a Ministry of Health Coordination in the federal government which coordinates all these implementation issues.
Okay. Any questions? Let me end. Yes, one question from the audience. Please, to the front. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. First of all, deep appreciation to the distinguished panelists for very incisive and very insightful exposés. My question is more addressed to a colleague from the UNDP. I mean, we do understand the UNDP's very positive role in terms of implementation of the SDGs, but out of experience, what would you say in terms of the appetite from the donors in the implementation of SDGs? What has been UNDP's experience, both in financial terms and technical terms, and the appetite in the member countries? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rosen.
Especially in terms of resource mobilization on the financial partnership.
Please.
I think in terms of yes, oh no, it's too low. I think in terms of resources for the SDGs, there are certain obligations and commitments that have been made by the OECD countries, the DAC countries, which need to be maintained, and particularly the 0.7% target. But even if that is reached, which at the moment is not, of course, even if it is reached, the other forms of financing that are needed are very big. So I think there has to be a much broader concept in terms of financing the SDGs in this case. If we look at some of the meetings that have happened within the region on financing for development, the preparatory meetings to the Addis Ababa conference as well as follow-up, I think there's a recognition, at least in Asia, that a lot of the funding will have to come from domestic resource mobilization. And we need innovative new financial instruments to make that happen. It's not just from the state sector, it's also from the private sector. It's more smart use of remittances, and I think so that there's a whole set of work I think that is needed to look at what kind of financial instruments are needed to actually create more liquidity and mobilize the funds, whether it's domestic, private savings, whether it's the government's own tax bases, and so on. So yes, we need ODA, and we would want to see that grow, and particularly for countries in crisis, for LDCs, for SIDS, that's going to remain very important. But for other categories of countries, particularly middle incomes, we have to see how to mix that with domestic resources. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to close the session with a small but important question to Minister Sofyan and Minister Ba. As you know, OIC member countries are having a very young population. More than 50% of our population, on average, is between age 20 up to age 24. Indonesia and Senegal is also included in this composition. And this agenda, Sustainable Development Agenda, is critical for all parts of our society, but especially for the young people. So do we have some specific consideration for the youth in the implementation of the SDGs in your countries? Can you just briefly give us your views on this issue? Mr. Excellency Dr. Sufyan and Dr. Ba, please.
Yeah, thank you. I think we realize that, the bonus of demography, that is, on one hand, this is a very big opportunity, but on the other hand, it becomes challenge, if we cannot, create environment so that they can get a decent job or decent business opportunity. So what we are doing here in Indonesia, first of all, we try to review our education system. We found out, I think in most developing countries, our education system is too degree oriented, not much skill oriented. So now we want to reform our education system to become more skill oriented rather than degree oriented, or in parallel. I think if you are familiar with our Ausbildung system in Germany, I think that system is quite good to prepare our youngsters to be ready for a decent job. Because if you follow your degree, after you get degree, you know nothing. You know a lot of things, but you don't have any skill. So that is one aspect. The second aspect is, in developing countries, most of our jobs are created in the informal sector. So how to improve the environment so that the small and business enterprise can blossom. And therefore, right now in Indonesia, for instance, we allocate and we subsidize credit, microcredit, to the subsidy alone, reach about $10 billion, $1 billion. Yeah, the objective is about 200 trillion rupees. That is 20 billion US dollars, right? The money will be allocated for small and medium enterprises. And in fact, if we see, the outcome or the impact of these targeted credit for small and medium enterprises, it will create a lot of opportunity for young people who cannot enter into job market because of, slowdown of economic growth, investment is slowed down, something like that. So they can have opportunity. They set up your own business, startup company in IT, in economic creative or something like that. I think this is a very important aspect that we have to pay attention. Otherwise, when you have so many young people without hope, without decent job, without skill, without business opportunity, this become, like a time bomb. Will destabilize the society at large. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ba, you would like to comment for Senegal?
Thank you. The issue of youth is a major issue for our country. Senegal, like many other countries, has a population that is quite young. We have some 2/3 of the population that are under 45, 40. And this shows the difficulties that we encounter. The first issue that we had to settle in is the schooling, because our population is not wholly literate. Therefore, the schooling issue had to be settled. And then we had also to settle the problem of gender equality. So all these issues had to be settled beforehand in order to enable women to have access to education, to have access to training. The second problem that we are trying to settle also is the vocational training issue, because it is one thing to handle literacy, but it is another thing to have vocational training, and this, with international organizations, with the help of international organizations, including IDB, we are handling this problem of vocational training, and then, employment is focusing on the youth as well. And with the IDB also, we have a program that enables through agriculture and livestock and husbandry, etc., to enable the youth to produce, to be producers, and also to have a job. We have also the ITCs today that are that fundamentally, basically, can create a great number of jobs and be growth drivers. This is the way we are working today, all the more that our country, Senegal, is very close to Europe, and we have a very mobile population, and the objective is to keep our youth. And to do so, we need to inform, to train them, to educate them, and the government of Senegal, in this respect, spares no effort in terms of education, youth education and employment, with the help of international institutions, including IDB. And we have a specific program on youth employment that is quite satisfactory for us. And I thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to thank both ministers for their insightful comments on the youth, and there is very promising developments in these two member countries. So on this note, I would like to conclude this session, and I would like you to join me in thanking our distinguished panelists.
Thank you, Excellency. Thank you.
Sağ sol gidiyor. Evet, sağ sol gidiyor. Tamam. Ondan şey yaparız. Şuradan herhalde. Açık değil. Açık değil şu anda. Açık mı? Açık mı?
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are about to start shortly, so if you may take your seats, the Minister of Finance is on the way. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may ask you also to come to the front seats. There are plenty of seats in the front. Please feel free. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد عليه أفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, peace and blessing be upon His messenger, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him and all previous prophets and messengers. Excellencies, honorable delegates, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We welcome you all to this important seminar, which is being held on the sidelines of the 31st IDB annual meeting, the Board of Governors. Let me invite His Excellency, the President of IDB, the Chief Guest and speakers, His Excellency, the Minister of Finance, Indonesia, His Excellency, the Ambassador of Netherlands in Indonesia, the Deputy Minister, National Planning of Indonesia, Deputy Secretary General, Minister of Finance, Malaysia, and Senior Secretary of Economic Relations Division, Ministry of Finance, Bangladesh, to please come on the stage.